Welcome back to the Sure Sales Group Show, episode 34. I'm here with a good friend of mine, a Baltimore business legend, I will say, Mr. Brooke Kaine. Well, it's true. So Brooke, a lot of people in the real estate industry know Brooke, do business with Brooke, and he was nice enough to come on the show. We've met many times in the past. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself so they can get to know you better?
Sure, Andrew. And again, thank you very much for your kindness in asking me on here. I basically started in Calvert County, which, for a lot of you guys is a galaxy far, far away. It's down south in southern Maryland. And basically was a land developer where I'd cut the farm, put the streets in, build the houses, rinse and repeat. And it was a good career. As things worked out towards the post-recession, uh, the county had very, very strong no growth kind of legislation, and slowly the building business became very difficult to cut ground, okay, because of the anti-growth, and decided that we wanted to come to Baltimore and seek out new opportunities. So in August of 11, my wife is from Pikesville originally. I did go to St. Paul's for my last 2 years of high school. So, we had some roots in the neighborhood. And, we came up to the city in August of 11. And, we'll talk more about that. But we still have the building company in Calvert.
Yeah.
But it's not the same kind of business it was in terms of regulation and frustration and challenges.
Brooke's a humble guy, so he killed it in Calvert County for like decades as a new home builder. And then we were lucky enough to kind of absorb you here into Baltimore. I didn't know you were a St. Paul's guy. Makes sense, smart guy. So I know there's three big, silos of things you focus on. He's a real estate guru. A lot of really smart people go to him for advice on buying, selling, building, flipping, investing, renting, because he has such a wealth of knowledge. But I want to talk a little bit about new homes because
Okay.
I have a little bit of experience there, and then rental properties, and then finally your perhaps biggest business would be the hard money loans you do to help builders find, complete,
Exactly.
and finish projects. Um, so why don't we just jump right to new homes? When you came to Baltimore, I know you're doing a little bit of that, not as much anymore. Tell us a little bit about your new home experience in Baltimore and what opportunities and weaknesses and things you think people should know about building in Baltimore.
Well, the big issue in Calvert County was constriction on your land inventory. You couldn't create lots, and
Mm-hmm.
believe me, folks, it's very difficult to build houses without lots. Okay, so I felt if I came to the Baltimore area, there would be more availability of lots for new homes, and I would have a different division, and then in the county areas, Anne Arundel, the surrounding counties, Baltimore County. And we did buy lots, and were successful then. The recession was kind of coming out of 11, and the
Mm-hmm.
timing was good. Did some things in the rehab space in the city. Okay, so we had kind of a outside inside kind of objective. But the longer I looked at the new home construction on the outside in the counties, the more I saw it was the same places I left. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
regulations weren't quite as bad, but you still need to put massive amounts of capital in the ground business and the new homes
Mm-hmm.
business. So I wanted to get away from that,
Mm-hmm.
particularly my age, and I liked what we were doing in the city. I was basically a lender in the city for the different relationships I had with some guys,
Mm-hmm.
and that migrated into the hard money
Right.
business, private lending business, and that business has really grown. It's based on relationships, like all businesses, but that's been a very satisfying uh, endeavor. And then we're in the rental business, primarily in the Dundalk, Middle River, Essex
Okay.
market, and I look at those areas over there, Andrew, and you can buy these houses for 65 grand. You put 30,000 in them, and you get a product that's $105,000. I can't, from a new homes guy,
Right.
I can't build that,
Yeah.
for anything. I mean, it's like, how do you not make a deal with that kind of? They're built in the 50s. They've got great bones. So we've really been aggressive in that marketplace, and have about 113, 114 of those. So
You got
we're
113?
yes,
I
we've
have a
been
lot of
very aggressive.
questions
Okay,
because,
so that gives you a
yeah,
sense.
he's
This is going
qualified to
away.
talk about it. Oh, this one's going away.
Because it's a game has changed.
Well,
New homes has
You're
changed.
not that old, but it's kind of a younger man's game, hustling, moving, shaking. This is a
You're getting
long-term
eaten up
play.
by the Nationals. The Nationals, the Lennars, the Hortons,
The Ryan Homes.
they're taking bigger and bigger market share, and they can wait out the entitlement process on the ground. They can wait out the regulations. The small guy, they used to be under the radar. Now they'll buy 10 lots here, they'll buy 15
Right.
lots there. So for the smaller home builder, you go where they're not, which is in the city, rehabbing, or it's the high-end custom homes, which is not, where I want it to be. Too much hand-holding there. So I see this as a business. 15, 20 years ago, it was a good way to make a buck. I see these other two things here right now in my career as much more
Okay.
viable.
So he's very qualified to talk about these types of things with a pretty decorated career. Jump into rental properties. A lot of clients ask me and our team, we're residential real estate brokers, so a lot of people want to invest. If you owned one home, let me put you on the spot here. If you just owned one home and you wanted to get into real estate investment, which a lot of our clients do, they say, hey, I own a home, but I'm into this real estate thing. It's fun. I see how it makes sense. I like the idea of passive income coming in every month,
Sure.
tax write-offs, someone paying off my loan. Are you still convinced that's a great investment if you get a good deal and a good loan?
What's better?
So you're
I
saying it's
mean,
the best?
well, I'm not saying the stock market's easy. Okay, I mean, people are into the stock market because it's easy. You can dial up the broker and you can buy some. And I'm not trying to attack my broker friends or anything like that in the market, but real estate offers one leverage. Okay, you can put a relatively small amount of money down. In the stock market, they call it, on margin, but not that many people have the courage to do that. But so you've got leverage going for you. You can write off. The government incentivizes, real estate purchase, in particular rental property, so you can write off your interest, your taxes, your expenses, and for God's sake, depreciation. You
Yeah.
wind up having very favorable tax situations at the end of the year. So that's something that I've always known, but we would buy, and we're certainly trying to, all of Dundalk, Middle River, and Essex. We think that's a solid
Yeah.
area. We think there's a tremendous amount of job growth over at Trade Point coming in, and so we like those areas, and we like rental properties. It's not as glamorous maybe as an apartment building, but
Right.
it's something that I know and feel comfortable with.
If you want to talk with Brooke, he's an open book, and he'll meet you at Deep Pasquale's right here in Highlandtown. Probably buy you lunch. You bought me lunch there. So if Brooke likes Middle River, Essex, and Dundalk, I'm going to start looking there too. Not to step on your turf, but
Everybody's in Dundalk, Middle River.
there's two key points there. You made a bunch of good points, but real estate, obviously I'm a fan, not just because we sell it, but if you really understand it, leverage, you can't go to the bank and say, hey, I have 10,000 bucks, I have good credit, I want to buy $200,000 worth of Apple, like the stock market. That's the leverage. You can put down 10K and buy a $200,000 asset. So you're levered up in a pretty safe asset that kind of the whole country with good property and contract law supports. And then you said the tax thing, which is the main reason a lot of guys with some extra dough, hey, if you have 1, 2, 3 million bucks in a stock account, 401k, SEP IRA, it makes a lot of sense to diversify and maybe get some tax benefits. People don't realize on your primary residence, you're writing off your property taxes, your mortgage interest, the year you buy it, you can write off your closing cost. I'm not going to get too minute here, but in an investment property, you still get those write-offs, property taxes, mortgage interest, but every expense from there on out, if you're not living there, that's a write-off. If you need landscaping, people are so afraid. They go, what if the fridge goes up? Well, replace it and write it off.
Yeah.
Not bad. And tell people about depreciation. That's the one no one knows about.
I was reading this book literally a couple of years ago, and I didn't know, didn't have a lot of rental properties at the time because in Calvert County there's not a lot of homes, period. And I read about this thing called componentization, which I have a difficult time pronouncing, so they also call it cost segregation.
Yeah, cost seg. Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you what, if you're into rental properties, now you see that a lot on commercial buildings, multifamily, larger scope projects. But you can do the same thing here because when you buy the house, let's say you're buying at 65, putting 35 in it, a big piece of rehab, 35,000 bucks. is materials, appliances, flooring, cabinetry, all those things. And a good accountant, you've got to have an accountant who's fairly sophisticated. Uh, they can be depreciated. Normally, you have to straight line it on 27 and a half years over. You have to depreciate the house over 27 and a half years. But some of those have like 5 year, 7 year, 8 year depreciation schedules. So in the front end, especially during your acquisition phase, who you can crush it. I
You can
mean,
save tens and tens of
oh,
thousands of taxes.
it's now you're going to recoup that when you sell, but actually
Right.
just our plan is just refinance and keep
Right.
on going. So we found that to be very beneficial. Look up cost segregation, and you'll find the information on it. But that was one of the best things that we've done to really kind of fast forward the amount of depreciation we get to offset our incomes.
So I'll unpack that a little bit because it's such a big point to make. When you buy a house and it's an investment property, not your primary residence, you can do what's called straight line depreciation. Take the cost basis, whatever you bought the house for, divide it by 27 and a half years. For easy math, 300K house, 27 and a half is close enough to 30. That's $9,000 every year you write off 9,000 bucks. Depending on, do the math, if you're paying 50% in taxes like some people are, that's 4,500 bucks in your pocket every year automatically.
Yeah.
Cost segregation is all those materials you put in, the flooring, the cabinets, the appliances, the lighting, the fixtures, the roof, whatever, you can speed up the depreciation and say, I'm going to write off this entire roof in the first 5 years. This is in the weeds accounting stuff. I know just barely enough to know about it. I'm not an expert. Shout out to Ellen and Tucker, by the way, phenomenal accountants. I don't know who you use. Feel free to shout them out, but I love our guys. Saved me a small fortune and just kind of puts your mind at ease when you know you're doing the right thing and also doing it the right way.
Yeah, it's massive. So, and everybody I talk to, particularly in the rental, single family home kind of Dundalk market, if you will, you say, I'm sure you're doing cost segregation. You say, what's that? And I've never heard of anybody, so it's not something that's well known, but I strongly encourage you. Cost segregation, look it up and you'll like it.
So you're a real estate guy. We talked about new homes. We talked a little bit about rental properties. We could talk all day about rental properties because there's so many angles. But again, Brooke's happy to meet with people in the community, because you're kind of an expert advisor to a lot of the big players.
That's very sweet.
Well, that's what they say to me. So you're giving a lot of good advice. I call it unpaid consulting, but your other business is very, this is a lucrative thing. This kind of has a bad connotation, like, oh, hard money lending, is that dangerous? What is that? Is someone going to come take a bat to my kneecap kind of thing? Talk a little bit about this business, private lending, maybe a better word.
That's what I call it, because, and I was wondering, hard money loans sounds like you're one step up above payday, right? When in fact, the hard piece of it, and I didn't know anything about hard money loans when I came up here. It felt like every bit of money I ever made felt like hard. But hard money loans, it refers to the securitization of the collateral and on a hard asset. Okay, and typically, a property. That's where the hard comes. But I normally do private lending as a term. But whatever, we are lending to folks in typically the rehab space, sometimes new ground up space, very rarely in ground deals. I've had enough of that. So I don't do anything that looks like a development deal. And typically short term money. And we're somewhat in the middle as far as pricing is concerned. And it gives me a way for an older dude to kind of stay in the game and have lunch at Deepest Qualities pretty much every day and talk deals.
Yeah.
And that for me is really a lot of fun.
So one thing I know is if you're going to get into any business, in particular real estate for me and the kind of circles I run with, you need to talk with people who are doing deals all the time. Because if you're doing a deal a year or you did a deal 3 years ago, this business is changing like
True.
this. You're on the cutting edge of what's going on in Baltimore City with the policy. I know you were involved with bringing the CHAP to certain areas, like literally changing neighborhoods. So knowledge is power. You're in the game on that. In terms of people who come to you looking for money or looking for your advice, the one kind of advantage you have versus there's a lot of people who are willing to do private money lending, hard money lending. but you offer some insight and perspective as well as the financing. So do you find that a lot of your clients take you up on that?
What we did, we put together a couple years ago a spreadsheet, called a gross profit estimator. No big deal. This isn't rocket science. We'll be glad to distribute that. It's not that sophisticated, but what it does is it breaks down the vast majority of the costs that you incur. Because people, when I first got into the business, I call it napkin accounting. They grab an extra napkin over there at Dips and write down, well, I can buy it for this. I got a brokerage. I'm gonna fix it up for this, and here's what I'm gonna sell it for. Let's do the deal. I said, well, I think you got a lot more costs that you're not taking into account. So, and especially these days, Andrew, we're finding that with everybody and their brother thinking they're going to get rich tomorrow in real estate,
Yeah.
we are in more of a counseling thing, because I believe strongly that as a lender, if we're the only ones standing at the settlement table and they're not making profit commensurate with their risk that they're taking, it's a bad deal. And eventually those kinds of deals wind back on your lap. When people start not making money, bad things happen. So we oftentimes will tell them, we don't mind doing the deal, but we're not going to do the deal based on the thin spreads that you're projecting. Because there's two things always in a rehab project, and as an expert like yourself, they go over budget, over time.
Yeah.
Not maybe, not sometimes, both times, all over. And we discount, we stress those numbers. Say, hey, what happens if the market pulls back? What happens if it takes longer? Those kinds of things. And you have surprises.
Mm-hmm.
So we are finding ourselves more than I've ever been since I've been in this, telling people no, because you shouldn't be doing this deal.
That's why this is someone you need to talk to, because anyone can lead, and when everything's rosy and the sun is shining, like Rob Weinhold said a couple episodes ago, everything's easy. You need someone with the advice and perspective who will get you out of a deal more than just slam you into one. So I think what's really fascinating, and probably one of the reasons you're so successful in the private lending space, is not only because you're liquid, you do it the right way, and the basic stuff, but he offers the perspective and advice to make sure you're gonna make money. And if you're not going to, let's get the hell out of this thing.
And make money commensurate with your profit. 5% profit, if everything works right, is not a good profit.
Not enough.
Okay, it's not enough. Commensurate with your risk that you're taking. And sometimes people say, well, gee, that's 10 grand. I don't make that in a month. Okay. Well, that can quickly vanish when you.
Or you could lose 40.
Yeah.
And you don't make.
So, especially with a lot of new folks coming into the market, they may have had little rose-colored glasses on. I think it's very important that you have the integrity to tell people no. Not whether I can make a buck on the lending side, but more importantly, whether this deal makes sense, especially if you're first time out of the gate. Who are the contractors you're dealing with? The whole thing. Because this is a tough way to make money. That's the end. That's the reality of it.
That is the reality. What I find is it's kind of like same thing with realtors and real estate. The barrier to entry is pretty low.
Pretty low.
If it was any lower, you just trip over it and smash yourself in the face. Anyone can become an agent. Hard way to make money if you want to be really good.
It's hard work.
It's like anything else. You have to try to master your craft, which is what you did for years in Calvert County. And you've made a big splash up here in the last, 7 years in Baltimore. I really appreciate you coming by. I'm going to ask you to come on again because we can go deep on some of these other topics.
Andrew. And tell you what, you and Joe, man, I see your signs like all over. I see what you're doing on your website, what you're doing here with helping people and dispersing this kind of information. You have the same kind of you start with helping people first, and as you well know, everything else comes from that standpoint.
It's a famous line that if you help enough people get what they want, you will always get what you want.
Always.
And I do believe in that. And so thanks again. Is there anything else you want to let people walk away with? I mean, if you're thinking about getting into real estate, you want to have a conversation with someone who can provide you consulting for free, money at fair rates, this is a guy you want to know. And when Brooke's involved, I like to be involved because I know when we bring the right team together, things run smoothly and no one's kind of acting like a knucklehead because we know there's a lot of those out there.
And if you want a great Italian sandwich, come see me. Di Pasquale. I
Thanks
love
so
it over
much,
there.
Brooke.
Thank
I
you,
appreciate
Andrew.
it.
Oh, by the way, in contrast, what you hear from these gurus and the books and the tapes that tell you you don't need any money, time, or effort to make it in real estate, the first question I ask people when they call me up to talk about money is how much you got. Not from your dad, your mom. I'm talking about how much money can you touch right now. And if that number doesn't start with a two and have at least four digits behind it, it's game over. It's very difficult to make money without money. I've been trying all my life, haven't done it yet. So that's a fallacy, and be careful with people who tell you that it isn't true.
I love it. Hey, beware of the vice and advice. Don't take advice from people that don't have it. Don't take money advice from people that don't have any money.
Yeah,
That was awesome.
great.
Thanks again.
Thank you.